Black people love the band Paramore. We're all aware of it. It's like an accepted truth. But it made me wonder, what other seemingly random things do large groups of Black people love? So in an effort to help Black people feel more seen through community, I compiled a list of other things groups of Black people overwhelmingly like and started my podcast called Black People Love Paramore. Every episode, I talk about one thing that groups of Black people like that mainstream media doesn't necessarily associate with Black people, but we know we like. Episode topics so far include anime, astrology, Tony Hawk, Ariana Grande, Twitter, ginger ale, Cash App, and a whole lot more. If that sounds like you, check it out. It's called Black People Love Paramore, and you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts.
What is up, y'all? This is Scarlett, aka Scardi B, aka your resident emo historian, and join me as I unpack the history of Fall Out Boy and hip hop. Look, y'all, there is a lot to cover in this limited run podcast, so strap on in, cause sugar, we're going in. And what's up, y'all? Welcome back to Sugar, We're Going In. And this is the first episode back from the release and just giving y'all my brainchild in form of a podcast. And I'm just so, look, y'all, I speak 2 languages and I don't have the words to express the gratitude for the reviews, the people who have reached out, who have DM'd me, messaged me, called me about listening to this. I got this beautiful text being like, thank you from myself as an adult, and thank you from me as a teenager, like really bringing together these 2 worlds and making me and this experience feel so seen. And that's what I do it for, y'all. And this shit has gone fucking national, okay? Y'all fucking did that. So if y'all don't mind, I'm just gonna give a few quick location shout outs because so from New York City, Queens to Los Angeles, California, we got Brussels, Belgium, we got Edmonton, Canada, we got Joao Monlavade, Brazil, Uruguay, La Plata, Argentina, Costa Rica, Perth, Australia, Nelson, New Zealand, just to name a few. Y'all did that. And if you are listening from there, thank you so much. You have no clue how much how it feels to see this connecting with people. And you know what? Ludacris said it would be like this. Finally, hoes in many, many area codes. Can I get an amen? But seriously, y'all, keep sharing this podcast, keep liking my TikToks, my reels, my tweets, because I have no clue what I'm doing, and I won't stop to ask for help because I am a stubborn ass Dominican. So, welcome back to Corrections Corner. Corrections Corner is not a fun place to be. It's a funny place to be. But let me just kick it off. Alan Ferguson, the music video director, made 9 videos for Fall Out Boy, not 7. The other 2 were literally sitting in the back of the page I was reading, and I could not be fucking bothered to look. So it's 9 videos, not 7. And you know what? The neurodivergency really be diverging when you're nervous and recording, and it happens. It keep things spicy and me humble, obviously. But look, y'all, I went to art school. Don't make me count numbers unless it's money. And also, finally, the woman dancer in Dance Dance, the one that was next to Travi, nothing, nada. Like I learned how to lurk the internet from Pete Wentz, and like I could not find anything, and I usually can find anything. I'm like CSI, FBI, and everything in between when I get on the internet, and I could not find a motherfucking call sheet. Nothing on IMDb. So if you are a internet sleuth, please help me in the quest to find this woman that was in a Dance Dance video. I love her, and she is my idol. So we covered 2004, the start of Decay Dance, and we did 2005, which was From Under the Cork Tree. Now, I loved going through 2005 because I remember everything just so vividly. Like, some kids hear like bachata in the mornings when it's time to like clean on Saturdays or Sundays. If you know, you know. But my mom, that was the one time that I would get to put on my music, because if not, I was not doing shit. And I remember my From Under the Cork Tree CD getting put in that like rotating CD player. And I would clean and I would read the lyrics at the same time. But this experience is not singular, because obviously it touched a ton of lives. And From Under the Cork Tree, the success of it landed Fall Out Boy a Grammy nomination for Best New Artist. Now, they did not win, but they'll always be Best New Artist in my heart, in my fart. They were nominated again in 2018 and didn't get it. But I'm starting to think that maybe being a part of like the Recording Academy now is just a long con to nominate and announce Fall Out Boy on stage. Now, stay with me. The world will never know, but I'm a lot closer than 2005 Scarlett could have ever imagined after that devastating preteen loss of their, Best New Artist Grammy. She's never recovered. She is me. I is her. But you got this, baby. I love y'all. And now we are in 2006. What a delicious year, you guys, because this is the year that we get gym class heroes as cruel as school children. Oh my God. When I tell you that gym class heroes just changed the game for me. Like, before I was even like crazy into the roots like that. I mean, I'm from Philly, so like I gotta, but like they were my original that. Like my brain exploded hearing Paper Cuts for the first time, Makeout Club. Y'all, I was on LimeWire downloading this stuff. And yes, it sounded like I downloaded it through a like megaphone and was listening to it through a potato, but the music was so goddamn good. And I just remember immediately being obsessed with Travi, and with everything that came of it, it was just so sonically beautiful. And, Travi really talks about, like, I didn't want it to be a concept album, and it totally didn't come off like that. But the rollout, the way that the names of the tracks are like school periods, it was such a beautiful start to finish. And I remember having the video for Shoot Down the Stars on my iPod video. So me watching it on that 3-inch by 2-inch screen and literally just sobbing, like between that and Right On, probably still to this day some of my favorite songs. But before I get too far into that, we're gonna rewind, because I'm your context queen. This was also the time that Patrick Stump was working with Gym Class Heroes. He produced the album As Cruel as School Children. So I'm imagining the recording happened around 2005 when From Under the Cork Tree came out, which is absolutely wild, bonkers, crazy, because I'm sure they were incredibly busy, but he makes time for what he loves, and I really appreciate that. Y'all, before we get any further, I have a confession to make. This is actually a Patrick Stump Stan podcast. Now you're fucking stuck here listening. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, and I know you're shocked, flabbergasted, but this whole concept of Sugar We're Going In was mostly inspired by wanting to give Patrick his flowers for all that he's done with Gym Class Heroes and beyond. That's altered a lot of my interests moving forward. I mean, I still remember hearing Cupid's Chokehold for the first time, and that hook is still in my head 17 years later. Funny enough, when I posted about this podcast even happening, I had someone drop a comment. I think it was Finestro, and he was like, Patrick Stump is a problem. And I fucking agree, y'all. So all the love to him. I think, again, the man just thinks different, and I absolutely adore him. And as a producer, he started off as a little bit of a reluctant producer. So I pulled this article. It is Producer's Corner from Performing Songwriter 2008 magazine. This article by Howard Massey that we'll talk about now, and again a little bit later, goes, hey, the lead singer does not go, hey. Lead singer and guitarist of Fall Out Boy seems almost surprised at the degree of success he's achieved in the producer's chair. Although he's been described by a bandmate as a total mad scientist, Now, y'all, that was Pete. They could just say Pete. Patrick Stump never wanted to put records together. And then this is Patrick. At first, I really didn't think that production was something I wanted to do, he explains. Earnestly. I love that they put earnestly. The man's so real. But I found that I loved it, and I only fell into it because I am a multi-instrumentalist. Oh my God, that was such a mouthful. He continues, and having some type or some kind of control over every instrument appealed to me. Little surprised then that some of his role models include Prince and Brian Eno, as well as Neil Avron and Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, two veterans who produced on Fall Out Boy's last two studio albums. Yes, we'll be talking about Babyface in 2007. Relax. So that's just a little bit about how he got his production career on and like what he was thinking when he was first starting this. But I give it up to him because I think a lot of being in the industry is finding out what you're good at. And sometimes it's out of necessity. And when you can grow out of necessity and actually really grow to like something, I think that's a really beautiful thing. But Patrick has a pretty musical background. So he did hip hop, but he was really into jazz, but he was in a punk band. And what I really like about his stuff is that like he does a lot of sequencing that you like can't do live, but then also plays like almost like this role of musical director to what it would sound like in real life and how to bring that to life, which I love because another favorite musical director of mine, I mean, two of them, Adam Blackstone as well as Man from here in Philly are doing really incredible stuff. It's a beautiful art form to hear because you never go to a concert and want to hear what's on the record. Like you want to experience like a new level to it, and that's actually why I really like Chromeo too. So if you haven't checked out Chromeo, check it out. So we have Patrick, the reluctant producer, has always been a drummer in bands. He never started as a singer, which always absolutely shakes everyone to the core. So he's always been the drummer in bands, which plays obviously a huge part in producing and creating beats. And apparently he spent 2 weeks in a reggae band playing bass. My Lord Jesus, what I would do to see, hear, experience that are a lot. But we're going to kick it right into Patrick's hip hop history. There was a Hype Man podcast again in 2011. It's not online. Don't try to find it. I found it because Lord Jesus blessed me. Just kidding. It was 3 a.m. I found it somewhere. I had to download it. But this podcast really dove into his, love of hip hop and what really lights him up about it. But a few notes that I took, he said that my sister used to work at EMG and then Sony. Are you a Nepo baby? I'm kidding. He's not. Apparently his sister just had a ton of like box sets and they were just all stored in the basement, like the ones that she didn't want. Because when you work at a label, you just get a bunch of, extras and just like gifts and like promo packs, whatever. And that's where he found hip hop. There was like a Sugar Hill box set and like a Tribe Called Quest like anthology box set. And he goes, if she liked box sets more, I might have not gotten into hip hop, which is funny as hell. And then when asked, what spoke to you about hip hop and these box sets? And he said, I come from it at 2 directions, right? So my mom was very lyrical. She taught me about lyrics, and my dad was very about the music. Patrick's dad is a musician. Gets talked about a little bit in the article that I'm about to hit next, so I'll keep that for that. But old school hip hop and what he was listening to sampled a lot. And as a drummer by trade, I feel like that definitely spoke to him and just had him thinking again different about music. So when he got into lyrics, this was really, the Midnight Marauders Tribe Called Quest time. And I actually fought on if I wanted to bring this up, but Patrick was very, very kind on Twitter in like 2011, and he would chat with fans. And of course, I thought I was in Almost Famous, and I really took full advantage It's a pattern in my life, but he was so kind. And I remember I asked back in May of 2011 about some rap albums that he was especially keen on. And he goes, I can rap like every word to Mos Def's Black on Both Sides and Tribe's Midnight Marauders. That was backed the fuck up, because in an April 2014 interview by Joe Basso for Music Radar, the #1 website for musicians. Sorry, that's so funny, but he specifically lists like 10 of the records that changed my life, and includes a really, really good take on Mos Def's Black on Both Sides. So the thing instantly, okay, this is Patrick in the interview, by the way. So the thing that instantly got me about hip hop were A Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul. I like it when the focus was on lyrical wordplay, when there was awareness of the culture that came before you. Coming into the late 90s and early 2000s with that kind of appreciation for hip hop, Black on Both Sides was like an explosion to me. If there was such a thing as backpacker hip hop music, this was the best album ever in that way. It's a little crazy that Mos Def isn't so well known as an MC anymore. I think everybody thinks of him or knows of him. He's an actor, and he's a great actor as well, he continues. But he's one of those guys who is just unfairly talented. But man, is this record good. I respect the hell of anybody who can craft a pop song and make you think. He's got a lot of songs like that on this record, and I know every word to it. So there you go. I really love that interview, and like he types and talks back to you the same exact way that he speaks. So I just could completely see him just going absolutely off, and this journalist just being like, okay, well, this is all we can use right now. So back to Twitter, I wrote back to the Mos Def tweet asking if he'd ever like perform, like these raps. And he goes, I think me actually rapping wouldn't come off the way I'd mean it to, respectfully. I've written a lot of raps, but I doubt I will ever perform them. And you know what? I understand. But one thing about me, you got to give me my credit, my flowers, because a bitch had foresight, okay? I was really out here asking the important questions. Finally, all I got to say about him rapping, unlock the vault, boo. I need this Patrick Stump ghostwriter moment to pop off in this very moment, y'all. He is going to make this non-existent music career of mine a dream. I will finally be the Scardi B I dreamed to be because of Patrick. Okay, so a homegirl's looking for a ghostwriter. I'm kidding, I'm not. But I'll take what I can get, hon. Give me a rap or 2 or 5. I'm kidding. But, I'll take what I can get, hon. Give me a rap or 2 or 5. Anyway, so amazing. This take on Mos Def's Black on Black and Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders from Patrick. And then there's this article from 2008 on the New York Times by the byline, John Caramanica. Oh my God. Why did I not try this? John Caramanica. Honestly, leave it in. He writes the people as Mr. Wentz and Mr. Stump. So like prepare for the funniest fucking reading of it, because I could not. I thought it was so gentleman of them to do this. But listen to this article real quick. John says, this circumstance naturally an accident. To this day, Mr. Stump is modest about his talent. I sing, this is Patrick, I sing because Pete wanted me to, he said. I sing because Pete saw in me a singer. When Mr. Stump auditioned for Fall Out Boy, it was to be a drummer. And he says, I don't ever remember singing for anybody until I was in a band, he said. It was something you did very privately. John continues that he gleaned that from his father, David, a sometime folk singer with a large genre-spanning record collection. Even though the elder Stump gave up performing long before Patrick was born, Patrick would still catch him singing the occasional song around the house. Mr. Stump's father also provided a cultural and moral template that he thoroughly soaked up. Patrick goes, civil rights was a huge thing in my family, he recalled. It almost took the place of religion as far as morality, ethics, things, and all that. God, thank you. You're a good one, Mr. Stump. Patrick continues that I never really felt like the frontman type. Mr. Stump, John continues, who is perhaps the least visible lead singer of any popular band, said later that evening at the Midtown Hotel where the night before he had celebrated Barack Obama's victory with a bottle of champagne alone. When he speaks, he worries the shock of hair that hangs down in front of his left ear, running his fingers over it repeatedly. I had no clue what the fuck he meant by that, but I saw it. I understand it. Patrick goes, I got really lucky in Pete. He's such a personality that I don't have to be a character, really. It's selfish that I let him get thrust into that, but it was awesome for me. Patrick ends up concluding this with, I don't think Pete thinks of himself as a bass player, he said. I think he thinks of himself as a singer, and he sings through me. Oh, Lord, who's cutting the onions? Y'all, when I first read that, John then wraps up with Mr. Wentz insists that Mr. Stump has been that all along. I think people will remember the immense ideas that Patrick had. He's definitely a lottery ticket. I agree, Pete. And it's really those immense ideas that Patrick had and that he executed that's supporting him in spreading all that knowledge and, love that he had for production and music and art, and doing that by producing other artists. The article ends with a quote actually from Greta from the Hush Sound. Yo, shout out to the Hush Sound. Like Vines, We Intertwine is one of the craziest albums I've ever heard. But Greta goes, Patrick's strongest skill as a producer is having a great sense of melody where there's a focus on certain lyrics and where they should be. He doesn't really engineer anything. It doesn't matter if you know how to set up a microphone. The only thing that matters to him is that you have a great song. All these rave reviews and just like mental mantras when going into producing are also supported by this 2008 interview by Howard Massey in the Performing Songwriter magazine, The Producer's Corner. Mr. Massey, I'm just going to start saying Mr. Everything. Howard Massey talks to Patrick about production specifically and some of his takes on it. So he starts with, Stump chatted with us recently between running errands in his Chicago neighborhood. Shifting gears effortlessly, he shared his thoughts on the art and craft of making records in the 21st century, and interestingly enough, citing film references as often as the audio ones. Does a future in Hollywood await Patrick Stump? Only time will tell. And it did. And I love that for him. He described himself as a garage band nerd, and he trusts his engineers to do the engineering, leaving him free to really get to the nitty gritty and the heart and soul of a song. As I also sit on GarageBand, sucking the ever living soul out of me just to record this one track. So snaps for you, boo. Howard Massey asks, what do you see as the main role of a producer? And Patrick responds that it depends, because producing is all about assessing the situation. I think it's a total fallacy to have one style as a producer and expect artists to meld to that. I've only done a few records at this point, but each has been a completely different experience. Some of the records I've produced have a lot of me playing on them or even writing with the band. And there are other projects where I'm really not a musical producer. I am more emotionally guiding the band, trying to point them in one direction, to help everybody get going. I've learned that there's so much of it is psychology. I don't play games with artists, but I've met a number of producers who take that attitude. He also continues with, I made a conscious decision to stay out of engineering. That is a different job, period. The good engineers I know have spent their whole lives developing that skill. It would be arrogant for me to come in and say, I know how things wind and I know how they need to sound. I trust my engineer to be good enough to know whether what I'm saying makes sense or not. I want everyone involved to have plenty of artistic liberty and to feel like they're contributing in real time. Howard then asks, do you spend a lot of time in pre-production with your artists, or do you prefer to jump right in so that things stay fresh? Patrick goes, I generally look for things to be spontaneous and feel as good as possible, but it really depends on the project and artists. That one thing about pre-production is that if everyone's on their game, you can really just fucking skip it and press record. He didn't say fucking skip it. He said just skip it and press record. But I felt that sentence. So pre-production for me, Patrick, doesn't necessarily mean hammering out the arrangement of a song. It means more about hammering out the artist so they're in a mind frame to give me and themselves the music that they want to make. That's one of my biggest challenges, looking at what an artist is shooting for and comparing it to what they're actually giving. Lord, I mean, as someone who works with artists now as a full adult, I mean, I completely understand this so wholeheartedly. Like, it is when you're in a studio, it is very much like the Maslow's like hierarchy of needs. Like, you need to have shelter, a good vibe, like the right people around you, like mental security, like emotional security, physical security, because you're about to be real fucking vulnerable, you guys. Like, people go into the studio and it's therapy, y'all. Like, there are people who go in there to sing about their dreams, their nightmares, their traumas, their wins, their losses. So I just completely understand where it's like, no matter how good a song you think you have, if you're not in the right mental space, you're not getting that across. And having someone to be there and give you functional feedback that you can use and that you trust really makes all the difference. So I really give it up to him for making such a conscious decision that the emotional and mental have to be there in order for anything else to take flight. Patrick then goes on to say that unless I believe they can give me a strong song, there is no point in working with them. I'd say that my biggest problem, that's like my biggest problem beforehand. It's true that there have been situations where I've written with an artist and I'm producing, or even written for the artist. But in all cases, it's to support their existing songwriting acumen. Basically, he's like, they brought a really solid skeleton that I'm really just adding on to and not just creating in real time and hoping that it's in their voice, because it's never really the same. Howard goes on to ask, do you feel like you can produce any kind of artist regardless of genre? And Patrick goes, I do. Depending on the song and artist. Musicians have common experiences, no matter what genre they work in. I've heard hip hop artists say the same thing as metal artists. It's a shame when a producer is genre specific because it limits them. I like music, period. And so I think there's something valid to every genre of music. That's not to say there aren't both like horrible and valid examples in every genre, but I think that, that you should afford every artist that you work with a great amount of respect, no matter their age, achievements, genres. And the Beatles were an extreme example of what you could accomplish in the studio because they had unlimited resources and great creativity. But even with unlimited resources, sometimes it's going to be that one room mic. Sometimes it's going to be that one demo. Sometimes it's that first recording is the best that you'll get. And sometimes mic placement isn't important if the feel is right. Ultimately, you can't lose sight of the fact that the music is the most important thing. Beautifully put, Mr. Stump. Y'all, with that, we are going to take a break. And in part 2, we'll pick up not with Patrick Stump, not with Patrick Martin Von Stump, but P. Steezy, the producer, and his work with Gym Class Heroes on the album As Cruel as School Children. So y'all, I just left you off with a little just a little bit on 2006 and just setting up context for Patrick's producing career, because next week, baby, we are doing Gym Class Heroes As Cruel as School Children. We'll hear back from Pete. Pete and Travi have a cute little moment in this interview that they did that I'll break down. But then we'll talk about the album itself and all your favorite songs on it. So thank y'all so much for listening again. It is totally a dream to be doing this. So if you liked what you heard. I mean, first of all, thank y'all for, this is probably the longest episode yet, and I hope to keep continuing to like give y'all exactly what you want to hear. So thank y'all so much. I actually did a poll of what y'all want to be called, and Shugs did really well, but I also shout out to Liz. She was like, call us like azúcar, like sugar in Spanish. And I said, azurquiños. Like, that is so cute. So I appreciate y'all one more time. So keep it locked right here. Make sure to check out the show notes for any songs and articles that I talked about here in this podcast. But also find me on Instagram, y'all. I'm at Sugar We're Going In. Real fucking easy. So I want to hear from y'all. TikTok, sugarwe'regoingin.com. That's a thing. So thank y'all again so much. And Sugar, we went the fuck in.